The following presentation was recorded live in Cincinnati, Ohio for CALLERLAB's 25th Annual Convention. This is Take 22, How to Manage a Home Program.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to have you here at our home program maintenance seminar. We're going to talk to you today about some of the successes that we've had up here as a panel, and give you some of the things that maybe we're doing that successfully maintain our home programs. And then after we're all done talking and giving our little spiels, we'd like to talk to everybody here and maybe share some success stories, talk to you a little bit about what you're doing. Maybe you could talk to some of the other folks and let them know what you're doing, so that we can share all the success stories that we have as far as maintaining our home programs. My name is Jack Pladdys. I'll be the moderator this afternoon. And my wife Sherry is right down here in the front row. Say hello, Sherry. Gotcha. And we live in the Cincinnati area. As a matter of fact, we live about 1 mile north of I-75 and 275 as you're going north on the north side of the city. And we call full-time. We're full-time callers, and so we're going to give you a little full-time aspect of it. We work with 8 different groups: a basic, mainstream, 6+, and an advanced. That's 9 groups, isn't it? We work with 9 different groups. Also call on the weekends. We work with daytime groups and the whole 9 yards. So we're very home program oriented. The majority of our income is made by home program work and not on the road, which we do that on the road too. But so we're very versed in our home program. Also, over to my right, one of our panelists today is Mr. Paul Walker. And Paul has been working in the North Carolina area. He calls for 2 mainstream clubs and 1+ club. If you've noticed, he's got a nice handout, and he's got a lot of neat stuff that he's doing too. And he wanted to talk and share with you some of the leadership aspects of what he's doing. Over here to my left is Mr. Dana Schirmer. And Donna, where are you? Donna was handing out the handouts. And where are you from? I forgot. Oh, from Barrington, Kansas. And he's been calling for 20 years. He calls for 3 mainstream clubs, coordinates plus and advanced workshops, teaches at least 4 sets of basic mainstream lessons a year, and has held various offices in state and district associations. So you can see Donna and Dana are very, very versed in the home program aspect of it too. Each one of them will give you, 15, 20 minutes of what their successes are. I'm going to go ahead and get started. One thing you're going to find out today, and you'll notice by one of the handouts that I had, the yellow covered handout, is successful home programs are 100% based on leadership qualities. Leadership qualities are a requirement. The small handout I gave you is sort of a basic outline of what I'm going to talk about today. As far as the leadership qualities being a requirement, you lead people, you manage things. All right, that's my philosophy, and you'll notice as you read through the yellow handout, there is a quote in there saying the same thing. And it's in business, it's possible to manage a business without having to worry about leading people. But in the square dance activity, we're 100% leading people. So not only are we managing our programs, but we have to lead the people. We have to direct these people and provide the sound leadership that it requires. We cannot manage a program without having some sort of leadership quality. Leadership qualities are learned, they're natural, or they're trial and error. The greatest learning leadership quality abilities way to learn would be right here at CALLERLAB, and you guys already are showing that you have the desire to learn just by being in all these sessions today. Of course, I've talked to you about the handout. When you're dealing with home programs, one of the fun things I've found out, you must define some goals. And if you've been through management courses, you know they always talk to you. You got to sit down, write down your goals, set them up. You have to define where you want to be with your groups. You have to know what you want. I don't care if you're calling for 10 different groups, you have to have an end result in mind. If you don't, you're just going to be out there swimming and not knowing where you're going. Know your limitations. Don't overextend. Now, Obviously, if I was working a full-time job still when I was in the Air Force, there's no way I could work with 9 different groups. But you got to know your limitations. 9 is almost my limit. I don't know if we could even squeeze in anymore, but we're always looking for something, But you know your limitations. Don't overextend yourself. The third thing that I think is very, very important in developing a home program is you must always strive to get better at what you do. As far as caller abilities go, you must know your craft. Attend clinics, seminars when they're in your area. If you've got traveling callers coming through the area, take advantage of them, learn, hire them in for a morning clinic, that kind of stuff. Work with your associations. Always learn to get better at what you do. Don't sit and say, well, I'm as good as I'm going to get. We're going to go along here. You'll just get nothing but stale. As far as dealing with your people, you have to be consistent. People need to know what you're doing. When you're dealing with your dancers, they need to be comfortable of your style of leadership and comfortable of your type of management. If you go in a good mood one day and a bad mood the next day, these folks are going to be scared to death of you. Be consistent, and they'll be consistent with you. Something that I know this is sometimes difficult, but you have to network. You have to network with other callers and cuers and leaders in the activity. If you'll notice in that handout, I wrote, "Do not pour mouth other clubs and callers." That is the kiss of death for your own square dance clubs. If you start saying, well, our club's better, and don't go here, don't go there because that person doesn't call this, or that person's still calling remake the thar or whatever. If you start doing those kind of things, then you're going to lose your dancers because they're going to lose respect for you. Keep a high what's the word I'm looking for? Keep high moral standards and ethics. Don't pour mouth. One of the other things, and I'm really on a kick on this one lately, is trying not to compete. In our area, we've got a lot of metropolis-type square dance clubs, the Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus area, and there are a lot of clubs. I would say between the 3 areas, there's probably, well over 100 square dance clubs. And it seems like everybody's trying to put on big specials all the time. And it's getting to the point where you got big specials 5 minutes away from each other with big-time national callers or traveling callers, whatever you want to call them. And everybody's pulling the dancers going left and right. Try to work with the other clubs. Network, as I said before. Try to develop some sort of rapport between the other clubs so that you're all working together instead of pushing against each other. You'll find that your clubs will grow if you help other clubs grow. And another one that I'm really excited about is do not dodge the political arena. I feel it's important to be a part of your local associations, your local political things. If you're involved in putting on state conventions, be part of that. Be part of those committees. You have to give the example to your dancers. I'm sure we all have the horror stories where the only ones that get voted to be president of the clubs are the ones that don't show up at the meetings or stuff like that. Sometimes it's hard to get people to do stuff for your clubs. Sometimes it's hard to get people to do their part of the committee work. Well, it's going to be harder if you don't show the example and go over and become the secretary of your local association or work on some committees for your local association. You get involved in the leadership political arena, and the dancers will get involved in the club political arena, and they will help you out. And then, of course, this goes without saying, you must recruit and teach every home club defined destination level that you call for. I say, they were talking about last night in the speeches, I say it's very important. If you're going to have a basic, mainstream, or plus club, then you need to be teaching a basic, mainstream, or plus class. You need to be recruiting dancers. You can't stand on your laurels and expect people to just come to your club without recruiting dancers. If you're teaching advanced, if you're calling advanced, you need to be teaching advanced. You must teach. There's got to be some way of feeding each program that you work with, or the program will eventually die. Always be prepared for your groups. Avoid extremes. Don't try to overdo, underdo. I wrote, as I was researching this, there's number 9. I was going back to old issues of Sets and Orders, if you remember that, the magazine. And there was this thing called "What is a Caller?" And I wanted to read that. I thought that was really apropos. He is a technician, an engineer, a psychologist, a psychiatrist. He is a janitor, a father confessor, a soother of ruffled feelings, an optimist. He is an entertainer, a master of ceremonies, a humorist, a showman. He is all of these and more. But if he is to be a successful caller, he is a true, bona fide, first-class, dedicated human being who loves people, loves square dancing, and loves life. I love that. I think that's great. And that came out of the 1970, or January 1970 issue of Sets in Order. It says it all right there. A square dance caller to run a successful program is going to have to pretty much be every one of those things. One of the things they did ask us to touch on is the caller run versus dancer run type of clubs or organizations. And I wrote down here, both have their debatable advantages and disadvantages. It's a situational thing as far as I'm concerned. In Sherry and I's case, we tend to handle, or caller run, you might say, our advanced group, because they're low maintenance. Very little do you have to do. The advanced dancers are there to dance, and we'll maintain that. Sherry takes care of a lot of that. We'll do maybe some classes, some workshops, things like that, and of course our own weekends. But actually we like, as far as the mainstream plus where the majority of the dances are, we like to keep the dancers involved. A lot of folks will say, there's you can make more money if you're doing caller run, or if you're taking the burden off the dancers, they'll come. But I believe, and I honestly believe this, if you take the burden off the dancers, that also takes the burden off of them to help you recruit into the activity. If you let the dancers off the hook, if you don't keep them doing something, then eventually all you're going to do is have some people show up at your dance, but they're not going to help you recruit and build your programs. You need to keep these dancers involved as best as possible without trying to overwork them. To summarize everything I said, regardless of your ability of leadership and management styles, you still have to keep open to the educational opportunities. Your book theories and practices may be generic, but can always be fitted to your certain program. Set goals, be consistent, strive to learn and improve your craft, be fair in your leadership, avoid extremes, work alongside other leaders, set examples, and never stop recruiting, no matter how frustrating it may get. Be a part of your group, be prepared for their needs. If you'll look, I put in the handout I gave you, there's sort of like an organizational chart, and this is our program. Now, I'm not saying this is the best program, the worst program, but this is our program, and it works for us. The one thing I would like you to pay attention to as you're looking it over, everything that we have, there is an entry to it. We teach it all. We don't have a plus club without teaching some plus lessons. We don't have a basic club without teaching some basic lessons. We have a way to move dancers into each area. Okay? And then on the last page, you'll find some of the different things that we do. Periodic class level dances, weekend festivals that we maintain, special theme dances, such as we've got the advantage of the Ohio River here, and we do some riverboat dances, outdoor parks. Last year we did a very successful, easy dance. Well, it was for me. It wasn't for Sherry because she did all the cooking. But we did a pancake breakfast dance. Started at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Actually started at 8 o'clock. Breakfast was 8. Dancing was at 9. Sherry cooked 500 and something pancakes, and we had about 15 squares at that dance, and it was a lot of fun. And dance went till noon. People loved it. They said, nobody's ever done that before. That's great. Easy things. Camp out weekends.
Yeah, easy for you.
Oh, easy for me. Yeah, okay, there you go. Christmas caroling. We've taken our groups Christmas caroling the last 3 years. I think we missed this past year because it just got away from us, but and they loved it. And if you've ever been outdoors in Cincinnati in December, it gets cold out there, but we'd have 20, 30 people. We'd all go to dinner beforehand, and we'd just go walking around. And actually, what we did is we went caroling here and there, and then we ended up going to a couple square dance clubs that were dancing that night. And we caroled here, we caroled there. Special occasion dinner dances, vacation trips, picnics, and after club dance outings, all those kind of things. You've probably done them all yourself, but those are the kind of things that make your program successful. If you keep spice added in, it'll take care of itself. And then, of course, is added extra special attraction that kind of tops everything off. And not everybody has this luxury, but Sherry now owns the Western store, so that kind of puts a little icing on the cake. So our program is very solid. And just to let you know, the dancer base that we work with throughout the week, working with all our different clubs, is well over 600 people. I mean, 600 different people. So, you can see that there's a lot of people to have to deal with. And sometimes, it gets a little frustrating. But for the most part, if you provide and work hard, they will provide for you, and your clubs will grow. And my clubs do grow. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn it over to Paul and let him talk about his aspects a little bit. And then we'll turn it over to Dana, and then we'll all open it up for open discussion. One thing I want to remember, when we do open it for open discussion, please, we'll want to be sure we'll use the walk-around mic and so that you guys can get on the tape, okay? Here's Paul Walker.
Thank you. I can't tell whether that was the applause for you or for me. I have 3 clubs, 2 mainstream clubs and a plus club. I use the 2 mainstream clubs to feed into my plus club. At one of my plus clubs, we have line dancing. At the other plus club at the plus club and at the mainstream club, we have round dancing, phases 4 through 3, 4, and 5. So we have an excellent program, we feel, that goes into this. While I was working with AT&T, I had got into the side of teaching motivational sciences and how to manage people. And so that has been invaluable, because whether we like it or not, we are leaders in square dancing. And I have this in great big letters, and it says, nothing is more important than the dancer. There isn't. Local callers are going to be the key to our future, and I really believe that. We're going to talk a little bit about the national or traveling caller or full-time caller, and I'm talking about, when I use those terms, it is callers who use calling as a means of their primary financial support. A leader, to define it, is a person or thing that leads, directs, commands, or guides. A manager is a person who manages the direction or the leading of the way they're going to go. Jack was telling me about when he was a teenager in high school, and he worked in a grocery store, and he was in the produce department, and one day a little old lady walks up and taps him on the shoulder, and he turned around. There's this 5-foot little lady with a cane, and she had gray hair, and he said, "May I help you?" And she said, "Yes, I'd like a half a head of lettuce." And Jack says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't sell lettuce by the half head." She says, "Yes, but that's all I need." He says, "Ma'am, we don't sell half a head of lettuce." She says, "I'm a customer and I demand to have a half a head of lettuce." He says, "All right." So he grabs that lettuce, goes in the back room, takes a great big butcher knife, and whoop, cuts that thing right in half. His manager's walking by, saw that, and said, "Jack, what are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm out there, and this grouchy old bat comes by and wants a half a head of lettuce." And he turned around, and there's the lady in a doorway. And he says, "And this sweet lady wants the other half." So, we have got to learn to think on our feet as callers. Did you like that one? That was cute. And anyway, people do not come to square dancing just to dance. This is where they come to socialize. It is a social club. And we need to recognize that. You can be the greatest caller in the world, but if these people don't have a good social experience, they're not going to last long. So there's a lot of activities that go into managing a home program so that these people want to come back every week, visit with their friends, talk with their friends, break bread with their friends. We as callers call for several reasons. One, obviously, is an ego. Some call for the money. Do what? And some call because they just love square dancing, or it's a combination of all three. So we have different things that motivate us to be a caller. Our areas of responsibility, very simple. We are the leaders. Club officers change every year. Associational officers change every year. In Oklahoma, when we lived there, their officers of clubs changed every 6 months. It works for them. So we as callers have to motivate these people and direct these people into doing the kinds of programs that we have. Anybody in here retired military? Raise your hand. Partner of one? These are the worst people in the world to put in a leadership position.
Turn this thing on. I might have to speak up.
In a voluntary organization, because they're used to barking commands and people respond. But if you know how to work with these people, they've been trained to be leaders. They're trained from almost the very first day they get in the military. And if they're retired, they had been through leadership training that industry never even thinks of putting their people through. They're tremendous leaders, but they do have to be guided. They have to be taught. And as a volunteer, I don't have to be here. It's a total different aspect. As professionals, we never stop paying our dues. Unfortunately, we have some callers who say, I've been calling for 17 years and all I want to do is go call and go home. I don't want to go to socials. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. We never stop teaching. We never stop recruiting. We never stop thinking about retention. I plan 18 months in advance of what our clubs are going to do. I go to the vice president of those clubs and I cultivate a relationship and I begin to plant seeds as to what I want done. I have a computer and I spit out 18 months of a calendar and I give them a copy of it. I said, this is what I'm going to be doing, and I've circled those things that I would like for the club to promote and to sponsor and support. Whether it's a festival, we also call 2 festivals. They're usually sold out every year. I'm not a traveling caller. I decided that when I became a caller. My wife, same way. I love the local home program. We do call about 10 engagements outside of our clubs a year, and that's plenty. We need a vision. Your club needs a vision. And all a vision does is gives you something to look forward to up there. That's my 18-month plan. There's a vision up there. We're taking a group to Las Vegas next August. A year from there, we're going to be doing something else. We're thinking about Branson. People need to look for. Here again, this social aspect that we as social animals love. Something that's other than square dancing, even though it may be combined with it. We also are responsible for the recruitment of callers. If we take a look, now in this panel, I can see right now, of course, we have 3 of the youngest callers here in the group. But you know, we're not going to call forever. And we do have a responsibility. I'm going to be a dancer long after I quit calling. So we do have a responsibility for that. We're also entertainers. And we do need to entertain things. One of the most important things that I ever did, and you look back at it, and it just turned out perfect. There was a lady who had an absolutely beautiful square dance dress on. Had no idea who she was. So I called her up on stage, and I said, do a twirl. I said, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. And then I said, and the dress is okay too. From that day on, that lady just absolutely loved me to death. I mean, recognition. There is no better way to motivate a person to want to do something and to become part of your group than to praise. Praise builds motivation. Birthdays and anniversary. Let people know that you're thinking about them on their anniversary. They're in a hospital. Go visit them. I look at being a caller similar to being the pastor of a church. Now, I'm not going to bring religion in this because we'd be doing hallelujahs and rolling in the floor in 5 minutes, so we won't get into some of that. But anyway, think of being the minister of a church and the functions that a minister goes through. Caring for people, filling needs of people, I spent almost a week and a half at a hospital with one couple a year after I just moved to North Carolina. Had heart surgery, went into cardiac arrest, was in a coma for about 4 or 5 days. I was there with that family, in the background, but I was there. I was there because I cared for the people as well. But if you don't know some of the duties of a pastoral service, go to a bookstore and buy a book on how to pastor a church. And then just follow some of those functions in there. I have a little card. Fits in a 6-inch envelope. On the back of the card's our name and address and phone number. And on the front, a little teeny teddy bear, and it says, God is not the only one who loves you. And I use this to send to people to thank them for something they've done. When I first was engaged in North Carolina, and it's tough moving into an area and becoming a local caller, because you do have competition among callers in the area. And I was hired for this one club 4 months before I moved into the area. They just knew I was coming. So I went up and called a dance for them. But I took this card, and through my famous Macintosh computer, I typed a message on the inside thanking them for engaging me as their caller, and I would do everything I could do so that they would not be disappointed in their choice. You don't know what that bought me. It's unbelievable what just a simple card will do, thanking someone for bringing a delicious upside-down cherry cake to the dance. Unbelievable what it will do. What am I doing? I'm cultivating and I'm motivating. When I go to those people and ask for favors, I'm going to get them. And that's what we do. We're leaders. Weekend festivals. I love to promote. Weekend festivals is different. You as a caller ought to be a dancer as well. Hopefully you're going with your group to festivals as a dancer. I do. I have a ball. We have an enjoyable time. One of the things that local callers sometimes have a hang-up with is the traveling caller or the caller who makes a living at calling. I'm in absolute total support of national callers coming through town. We have usually 5 times a year that we get national, what I call brand name callers coming through town. And I attend the dance as a dancer, and I like to introduce the caller because I also want to be up there with that person because I want them to know that I support what that national caller is doing. National callers are dead without us as local callers because we are the guy that provides that service of new people coming in. And not only that, but I look as a caller, as an evangelist. National caller comes through town, jacks that group up. You know what I've got to do at my next dance? Boy, do I have to work to keep that high up. But it makes me a better caller as a result of it. We talked a little bit about caller run or member run club. I like participative management, which means I enjoy a dancer run club because they're the ones making the decisions based on the seeds I plant, hopefully. And it works out because they're looking for you to the leadership. My wife is my greatest supporter. When we leave a dance, we discuss the dance and she critiques me. And I listen to her. And the thing is this, my wife wants me to be the very best that I can be. So I know she is going to give me some good advice. My wife can't sing with a flip. She sings flat, monotone. It's terrible. But she'll walk up and she'll say, as we're dancing home, she'll say, you know the fourth tip of that song? One time she just said, pitch it.
Paul, it's a good thing your wife's in Georgia this week.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. But anyway, listen to them because your partner wants you to be good. They want you to be successful. And they're not going to tell you something just to hurt your feelings. They're going to tell you something to improve yourself. And listen to them. Take some risks. We are going to lead by example. Take some risks when you begin to promote your lessons. And I'm not going to go into the entire package that I have, but in the package there are resources. There's a page of resources, Legacy, USDA, some super organizations that can provide you with things. USDA puts out an information booklet on how to write a local newsletter. It's fantastic. It'll provide your club anything. Communications is a key to success. So if you're working within that guideline of a good newspaper that comes out once a month, newsletter, whatever you want to call it, publish that and get that book for that club. Let them use it. There's also an article in here on 24 ways to motivate yourself to your full potential, how to be a leader, what makes a leader, how to get along with people, bringing out the best in people. And then in promoting lessons, there's areas in here that I provided recruiting ideas, some posters. There's an invitation card in there. It's on a 3x5 card. Put them back to back, have them printed, cut them out, and carry them in your pocket. Whenever you go in a restaurant and you've got the funny-looking clothes on, people, oh, isn't that beautiful? Boy, just slap that card right on and say, we'd love to have you come join us. We're going to have open house on such and such a date. Also, one thing that we're going to do this year is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to emphasize the importance, if you go to Sunday school class, invite your entire class out as a class outing for open house. Everybody go to dinner somewhere. Come on over to open house. Let's just have fun. There's a book, and I'm not going to go into too much of it, but the name of it is Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and Everything is Small Stuff. It's written by a doctor who deals basically in stress. We are under a lot of stress these days. We want to be successful, and things are sort of going down. Fortunately, my clubs are growing. We've doubled in 2 years. One of the things it says in there, that remember, when you die, your in basket is still going to be full. Don't sweat the small stuff. And the other thing is, we become what we practice most. We need to practice singing calls at home. We need to practice our patter. We need to really do our homework to do a good job for our dancers. The other thing, and I want to read an article that happened in the Kansas Times in 1986. It says this: most of what I really need to know, I know how to live and what to do, and how to be, I learned in kindergarten. Wisdom was not at the top of the graduate school mountain, but there in the sandbox. These are the things I learned. Share everything, play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you find them. Clean up your own mess. Don't take things that aren't yours. Say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. Wash your hands before you eat. Live a balanced life. Learn some, think some, draw some, sing some, dance some, play some, and work some every day. Take a nap in the afternoon. When you go out in the world, watch for traffic. Hold hands and stick together. Beware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the plastic cup. The roots go down and the plant goes up, and nobody really knows why, but we're all like that. Goldfish and hamsters and white mice, and even the little seed in the little plastic cup, they all die. So do we. And then remember the book about Dick and Jane, and the first word you learned, the biggest word of all, was look. Everything you need to know is in there somewhere. Golden rule, the love and basic sanitation, ecology and politics, and sane living. Think of what a better world it would be if we all had cookies and milk about 3 o'clock every afternoon and then lay down with our blankets for a nap. Or if we had a basic policy in our nation and other nations always to put things back where we found them and clean up our own messes. And it is still true, no matter how old you are, when you go out into the world, it is best to hold hands and stick together. Absolutely nothing is more important than the dancer.
Nice job, Paul. Here's Dana.
It's my nap time.
No, it ain't 3 o'clock yet.
These guys have given us a lot of good ideas already, and so I'm not going to expound on a lot of things. Most of it's a repeat, but there's first of all, we want to kind of bring in, as we said before, the caller-run club versus the club-run clubs, officer-run clubs. How many are working now as a caller-run club? Is there anyone out there? There's quite a few. Good. As we said before, basically, there's no right or wrong way on these clubs, whether it be officer or caller run, but the caller run club tends to give the caller a little more authority, the way things are handled. Club officers tend to be a little more political, where you have to talk to the club officers and advise in a leadership role of the things that are coming up. I think, in my opinion, the most important thing in club leadership is communication. It's amazing how you might say one little thing, and by the time it gets back to you, it's completely different and interpreted completely different. And that end, we quite often invite the club officers. We have 3 mainstream clubs. We invite those officers to our house periodically, and we just sit down and we discuss an agenda. And most generally, that agenda is my agenda, something I've established. I'd like to know your opinion on these items. And these are things I would like to see the club lean towards as a goal, a vision goal to go towards. And that's what we do. And we have a very good reception on those. We normally include maybe a potluck or snacks for people to have something to chew on while they're listening to things I'm looking for, and also, as we're waiting for people to leave or come, they have something to kind of talk about. We try to be a part of every officer's meeting. We ask the officers, when you have an officers meeting, can we be a part of it? And if any time during the officers meeting you want us to leave because you want to talk about myself, just tell us. We'll leave at that time. And some do. Most generally, if they're planning a surprise on me or something like that, that's when they're planning on asking me to leave. But we try to make their officer meeting so we are a part of the understanding of what they're planning for that year. We try to be a part of their planning committee. Anything's coming up that regards. We encourage membership to do things together. It may not be as elaborate as what Jack and Paul have said, but we do allow for picnics. We ask them to do potluck dinners, where it's not necessarily square dance arranged, I guess you'd say. It's more something they can do outside the activity. It's still socializing, but they don't have to worry about wearing square dance clothes. They don't have to feel like they have to dance. They can come out and just do something socializing and feel like they're a part of something. Be receptive to the club needs and desires. In other words, if they come to you with a request, you have to be somewhat receptive and understanding why do they want to do that. And then if you're completely disagreeing with, then you have to be able to define to them why this might not work. It keeps you on your toes a little bit and somewhat of a politician, but you have to weigh things out like that as to what is good, what is bad, and how can we work together to meet your needs but not interfere with what I feel is right and wrong. We talked about members must feel like a part of the organization. I think this is so true, not only in clubs, but in the organizations such as CALLERLAB. We are all members of an organization. We have to feel like we belong to it. And one thing you have to do, it's easy for the club members to sit back and not do anything, but they'll complain about, I never get to have my input on this. I never get a chance to do this. Even though you might ask them 20 times over the microphone, we need help with the greeters, we made this. If you personally go and ask the person, they'll feel more inclined to say, yes, I'll do that. So you have to be a little more aggressive and going and asking people, and they do want to be a part. They do want to do a part, but they may not be anxious to just step out and say, yeah, I'll do that for you. And then if you don't involve everybody, you'll tend to get maybe 5 or 10 couples that are doing everything for you, and they get burned out on it. And the people that don't get to be a part of it, well, there's no reason for us to go tonight. We don't have a role in this, so we'll just stay home. So you have to involve the membership as best you can, any way you can. And that's another thing we instill in the officers. Set up committees and appoint everyone you can to those committees. I know a caller back home has a caller run club, and his caller run club, he assigns every member in the club a responsibility. It may be nothing more than a greeter. It may be cleaning up after dance or whatever. But every club member in that club has a responsibility. And they know that as they join the club, that they're going to be assigned to some organization, to some committee. I think variety is a good point too. You can't always be calling the same dance. You can't always be expecting members to come and having a good time, but you're pretty much doing the same dance every night. We do a few things different. I have one small club that was getting tired of only having 2 squares a night for their dances, and they wanted to know, well, should we change to plus? And I disagreed with them. I said, I don't think you want to go to plus. There'll be some of your members who will not go to plus. They don't dance plus. You'll have a problem, some dropouts. I suggested we go to basics. And they kind of cringed, but said, okay, we'll try it. First night we had 100 people show up. People who have been out square dancing for a while, people that were still in lessons that were just past the basic level. And we really beat the bushes, but we had 100 people for about 3 or 4 nights in a row when we had basic nights, and we still do some of those. We still shift back and forth, do mainstream dances once in a while, then we'll go back and say, okay, let's do a basic night and see if we can have more fun with that. I do anything but normal night. This is normally just once a year, but I do everything in reverse. And as I most generally would end the dance saying, thank you all for coming tonight. Hope you had a good time, and do a nice slow singing call. I'll start the dance that way, and then do everything in reverse. The Grand Dance Cure will do a good night waltz first. Every tip thereafter, we do the paddle first, do the sing call first, and the paddle second, and we just kind of work everything backwards. A lot of fun, really, when it comes down to it. A lot of people stay for the whole dance because they want to see what's coming up next, and we have a good time with it. I use mini squares a lot just to give a variety. Again, when you're doing 3 different clubs, you have to do a lot of different things, and we try as much as we can, so each club feels a little bit different. Flexibility. That's important to the program as well as to your dances. You have to be flexible in all regards because you never know who's coming in the door, how they're going to be that night. You have to get down the floor and start mingling with the people and finding out just how they feel that day. So I don't necessarily program a full dance without some flexibility that I can go one way or the other and change that dance. And a good point, we make a conscious effort to go around the dance hall every night to talk to everybody in that hall. Between Don and myself, we both try to get around as much as possible. There's times when it's not easy because there are a couple of dances I do, the line dancing and the calling, and trying to get everything going and getting off the stage is hard to do. But I make a conscious effort to get around the hall and see everybody, especially those people we don't see but once every 2 or 3 months. And I spend a lot of time with those people, addressing how we missed them and hope they come back. As you probably noticed, most of us, when you walked in the door, Don and I tried very hard to see everybody came in the door today, and that's the kind of way we do at the dances. We try to be there, even though the club officers are there also, and the gritters, we try to be there and say hi. We think it's important that they realize that we feel they're important too. Just as all you are important to us, being here today. We talked about lessons. If you were not able to be at our session before this one, I was a part of a session that was on multi-cycle lesson plans. And there is a handout, not in this room, but up at the office, up the table upstairs, on multi-cycle lesson plans that I've been using quite a bit. It's, as we said before, I do about 4 sets of lessons a year, basic mainstream, and we have big success with it, a lot more than most of the clubs in the area. For those of us here, Nassar and Mike Seastrom have been using this program too, and they're really having a good time with it. A lot of enthusiasm for it. And there's some other people also using it. If you need to know more about that, again, there is a handout on it upstairs. And we do encourage you to look at it. It works for some. It may not work for you, but it's as an alternative to building your clubs. I spend a lot of time looking at the dance floor. One thing I've learned long ago, I've been calling 20 years now, and one thing I learned long ago watching Marshall Flip-On. I don't care where I danced. I could look up, and it's like one of those paintings where the eyes follow you. I could look up, and it's almost like Marshall was looking at me. And I think that's true of every dancer on the floor. He's watching everybody. And that's what I try to do, too. I try to watch the floor, so I'm not just pinpointing one couple down here or a couple over there. I'm watching the whole floor. And I'm not pointing out people's names or getting on their case or if they make a mistake or anything like that, but I'm always watching the floor. And if I see somebody I haven't seen in a while, I might mention their name. Well, hi, Jack. How you doing? And people like to hear the names, especially the microphone, if they're not being penalized for a mistake or something like that. They don't. At the same point in time, you don't want to use Jack's name all night, or the dancers will think that all he did was call the dance to Jack tonight. We weren't a part of this. So, but it does mean something if you can kind of pinpoint certain people once in a while and say, hey, it's good seeing you here tonight. So I'll try to do that.
Okay.
You okay? Oh, okay. That's good.
Or you just sleeping? You just taking a break?
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out where I'm at here. When I talk to my officers, I also point out one thing. The actions I take on stage, the actions I take as a square dance leader, and the actions they take as an organization reflect on all of us, so that they understand that if they go traveling to the dances where I'm calling, it reflects good on both of us. It reflects well that I have dancers following me, and I'm very proud of them being there with me. And so it reflects well. I think that's something we don't often point out to our dancers, that how much they are important to us and how it does reflect upon not only themselves but on the caller. So I reflect that to them also. Paul mentioned the point about going out and dancing to traveling callers. I make a point of going out and dancing all the time, as much as I can. In fact, I was a member of a club. The club I helped founded years ago, I was not a caller at the time, but I was a member about 4 years after I became a caller. And the only reason I quit them was I just could not keep that schedule, my calling schedule, 2 teenage girls going and try to keep everything in balance. So I finally had to quit. I still go down and visit from time to time, but I'm not a member of that club. But it's one of those things I think is important that a lot of callers forget, that we need to go out and show how much fun square dancing is. I think that's pretty much. I will make one comment, and this will probably be a comment for argument. I'm a firm believer we need more new callers. I'm a firm believer we need more new clubs. I think there's an enthusiasm that goes with that. When you have new callers and new clubs, they work hard to get off the ground. And what we're missing in our area, I know for sure, we haven't seen a new club in 15 years. And that's concerning. Most of our clubs are 20 and 25 years old. So that's concerning. If we had new clubs, I think it would draw more enthusiasm to the activity, because they're anxious to get going. They're anxious to get themselves established. And in summation, I thought I'd save this until later, but in summation, I want to make one comment. This is a statement that John Jones made to me several years ago, and I feel it's a very, very apropos statement. We have to return the 3 F's of square dancing: family, fun, and fellowship. And I firmly believe in it. Thank you.
Good job. Now we're going to kind of open up the floor, because we would like to talk about some of the successes you guys have had, or we'd like to answer some questions maybe that you might have with some of the things that we're doing. So if we could now, we'd like to open up the floor. We've got about a little over 30 minutes to talk, so we don't want to spend too much time on any one subject. Let's try to get as many as we can. Anybody got anything? Connie, could you do me a favor? Speaking to Mike, tell us who you are.
I'm Connie Sipe from Northern California. I just want to say thank you to all 3 of you. I've enjoyed it very much, very informative, and I totally agree with everything you've mentioned and a lot of your suggestions.
Thank you, Connie.
Yeah, I have a suggestion on new dancers class. I should stand up so I can look at them. I don't have a good side, but I'll put the best side toward them. Anyway, I'm Claude Sipe, the other half of Connie, and contrary to popular belief, I'm the caller, not her. She does most of the talking. She's not exactly the shy type. Anyway, one of the big problems that I've always experienced, I've been calling 25 years, and it's the integration of your new dancers to the club dancers. About 5 years ago, I started turning, after talking to Jack Murtha, he's from roughly the same area we are, and talking to Jack Murtha, and he had tried something that worked well for him, and I wanted to share it with you. So what I did is I turned the entire program upside down or inside out, backward, whatever, and I hold the regular workshop first and the new dancers class afterward. And what that does is you have a ready built-in set of angels already to join you. And I'd say within a month, all of the new dancers feel like they are part of the club, and nobody tells them any different. So they are part of the club, and it works very well for us out in our area. Thank you.
That's the idea. I like that. Any comment on that? That's backwards. Oh, okay.
We have the
New dancers from 7 to 8, and then the other way around. The other way around, yeah. Oh, that's great. I like that. You got your built-in dancers. Let me walk back here to Norb. Tell us who you are.
Jack, you're so darn... I'm Norb Rolson.
You're Jack. Jack, you are so successful in the Cincinnati area of getting new class members. You always have the biggest class in the whole area. And everybody wonders, how in the world do you do it? I mean, give us some of your secrets.
We pay each dancer $10 a night. Now, what Norm was talking about, and I have to say, we have been lucky over the years getting class members. But right now, we're teaching 2 beginner lesson classes, one on Monday, one on Tuesday, and between the two of them, we've got about 60 new dancers. And everybody that hears that, they say, wow, you got great sized classes, but 15 years ago, that was the smallest classes in town, if you think about that. So we're not really doing anything different than anybody else has, but what we do is we really involve our dancers. A while ago, I spoke about collar run versus club run. And, being a full-time caller, sometimes collar run is nice for the pocketbook. It is. It's nice for the pocketbook. But when it comes to recruitment, I can't do it alone because we're so busy with, what we're doing, and you callers are also busy with what you're doing as far as daytime jobs or whatever the case may be, that you don't have the time to do the recruiting yourself. You have to get the dancers involved. You have to make them want to be a part of the club. And that's what we try to do. We try to motivate our dancers. We try to get them excited about square dancing. We're not doing anything special or anything different. We're still going out there and doing some demos, and we're talking our friends into square dancing and things like that, but we just keep on doing it. We don't quit. We just keep doing it, and we do it year-round. We don't wait till August to start recruiting for September classes. As a matter of fact, we have like a little chairman of one of my classes that takes care of the recruiting, and about 3 weeks ago, he started outlining what we're going to be doing this fall. And he gets people, excited and motivated, and that's basically all we're doing. We're just getting people motivated and keeping them motivated year round to help recruit. And Dana mentioned the multi-cycle lesson plan. We're not using that right now because we're successful with what we're doing. It's kind of hard to change, but if you can keep people recruiting year round and use the multi-cycle lesson plan, that would be the perfect scenario. Because you could keep dancers starting all throughout the year. As far as what plans or what secrets or anything, everything that you've probably done, we've done, but we just keep on doing it. And a good example is what I mean by we keep on doing it. Some of you remember this radio ad thing that was going on this past year. It's really a big push, and we're going to keep working on it with our RPM committee. Well, here in the Cincinnati area, we paid for the radio ads, and I can't remember what it was, $5,000 or something like that. I think they had like 30 telephone calls, and probably 25 of them were interested or curious square dancers that are already dancing. And so that it doesn't look like we had a whole lot of return on our investment. But the thing about it is, I want to try to get the Cincinnati area to do it again, because you don't give up just because it didn't work the first time. The theory behind doing something is probably good, even if it didn't work the first time. Just keep on going. And that's really all I can tell you, Norm. It's not we're not doing anything special. We're just keep on doing it, and we don't stop doing it.
Jack, let me mention a couple of things. One thing that he said was, a key word is motivate. Once you get your class started, in that class, you will begin to pick out those people who are leaders. Start cultivating your relationship with those people, because a couple of years from now, you're going to be talking to them as vice presidents and presidents of your club. Begin to look for that. One thing that we did in Florida, we were lucky in the area we were because there was no other square dance club within 10 miles of us. We took a grid and gridded the city in blocks, and each couple was responsible for one block. They were responsible for putting posters on phone poles and whatever. Another thing we did, we made the 3x5 invitation card twice a day for 3 weeks in a row. We went out to the shopping mall and put this in the window, in the driver's window, not on his windshield, but in the driver's door. He'll pick it up and carry that in the pocket when he goes in.
as invitations. We had 98 people come to lessons that year. 98 people. Now, we graduated 74, something like that. But the following year, we did the same thing and only had 36 people come. So don't be afraid to retry something just because it didn't work or was real successful. It might not work next year.
One thing I failed to mention, one of the things that we do, I told you we start recruiting early. Well, we also use our class members to recruit. I mean, we shouldn't really have to say that. New dancers are the best tools you have to recruiting new dancers. And for example, one of my clubs is already putting together gift certificates for next year's lesson class and giving it to our new dancers so they can take it out and give it to their friends now. And then another thing we do is we start a database of names, and the club will, they got friends that, have friends that have friends that have friends, and we get these names, and we'll send them a coupon or something like that, but nothing different. But start now. Don't wait till August. Okay?
Yes, Jack.
Can you do that in the mic?
How often do you start a new dancer class through the year? How often?
Myself personally, this year we just started 2 in September. Last year we started 2 in September, 1 in January. But as far as the multi-cycle lesson class goes, Dana, why don't you talk a little bit just shortly about that?
A little bit on the multiple cycle. Basically, the ideal is you start a new set of lessons. Every 12, 13, 14 weeks, you start a new set. And it's the ideal that their friends will go out and get, the people in class right now go out and get more people, and those people go out and get more people the next time you start lessons. And at the same point in time, those people that are in class right now can come back and be angels in the second class starting. Even though they haven't finished the set of lessons that they're in, they have done the same thing that you're starting out the very first night with. And they can be angels and refresh themselves on the things they might have missed the first few nights of lessons. So they're rolling as they go through, yes. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of different ways on this program right now you can actually structure it. The way I do it is different than the way Nassar does, and the way we do it is different than Mike. And there's a group from Washington area that told us of a thing they were doing that's different than all three of us. So still somewhat new, still somewhat available to do some things with it that fits your programs. So it's the ideal is simply that you start more lessons, different times. September is when everyone normally starts, but there's a lot of things going on in September that people can't start in September. So if you can have some starting in November or January, okay, you get away from that old feedback, well, I can't start in September because that's when the kids get back to school and football season starting then and whatever. Okay, when we got some in January you can take, or we got some in April we can take, and you got some in July we can take. So, yeah, it's a very good program as far as I'm concerned. I've been using it for 20 years myself just out of force because I had 3 different clubs and I couldn't do them all in this fall. Yes. We have a mic coming in. While we're waiting for the mic, I will say that comment about, well, we tried that, it didn't work. I've heard that many times, and my comment is, so let's try it again. It may work. We had one success story, and I mentioned earlier this morning, was that we had 3 people show up for lessons one year. The clubs immediately said, well, do we really do lessons for 3 people? I should say 3 people. And I said, well, we can't afford the rent. Does someone have a basement? We'll use their basement. We graduated 3 people. But what the success story was out of that, the one person was a PE teacher. She got us tied into the school. That got a free publication into a school magazine went to 500 homes in the district about square dance lessons. She lined us up with a gymnasium we could use for free. And she also ended up going to the recreation center, a place we'd tried to get into for years, and they wouldn't let us in without charging $100 a night for rent. They called me and said, can we do something? We want to get square dancing on the program. About one person, just one person has changed the whole thing for us.
Directed back at your year-round class, this is Claude Sipe again, and do you then do new dancer type hoedowns, or is that normal in your area? When your classes all start in September, a club can do a new dancer hoedown at the level of that class, which of course would be impossible.
Yeah, we try to do that. We try to, as we get through the basic 49, we try to bring them into and do maybe a one night that's just for the class. And Christmas time, we have some, of course. That's in the September item. As we go into the spring, we normally have another one for the group that's in that group. We may have 2 or 3, depending on the size of class and what we feel they can handle and the fun that they might be wanting at that time. But yeah, we do some new dance or whole dance.
Let's go to Greg.
Greg McConey, Massachusetts. I teach a couple of clubs, and there are a couple of other clubs I'd like to tell you about. I don't teach alone. The woman that trained me, I teach with her one class. I have another club where I alternate with the club caller because he couldn't do it all the time. And what I want to talk about is the different way things are handled, the different way things go with these people coming out of the club, out of the class. The one I teach with the woman that trained me, we run plus workshop first, then the class, so we have our angels. We don't graduate on any regular schedule. We don't graduate until we feel that the people are capable of dancing mainstream. Unfortunately, we're a plus area. So we have our graduation, and then we'll alternate mainstream and plus tips for the rest of that year, then they go back to the normal thing. We go through the summer. What's happened is we have a very low dropout rate, but we only have 2/3 of our graduates that ever go to a dance. The rest of them just stay in the plus workshop forever. That's a problem. The other club where I'm alternating with the club caller, we run it through faster, and for some reason the people seem to like it a lot better. That club gives them their badges early. They become a part of the club. They get reduced rates to go into our mainstream plus alternating tips for the rest of the year, and then we take them through the summer. And we usually keep most of those people, and most of them go right into the club. I recently got a new dancing partner who's still learning how to dance, and so I go to her club. At that club, they teach the class at 7 o'clock, and then they have their regular club dance at 8 o'clock. They alternate mainstream and plus, and from the second week on, mainstream means what they've learned, and they're dancing all night, every other tip, and it's great. And those people are enthusiastic. They join in. They're a part of the group. She also learns at another club where they have a class on a separate night. And once they graduate mainstream, they're on their own, and they're invited to join the club, but they have to dance plus. This club this last year the last couple of years have been running a workshop for the first hour from 7:30 to say 8:15 to 8:30, and then they go into their normal plus. And the members are complaining that they want to have their A1 there, not their plus. They've had some good graduations, and very few people are coming back. And I guess I'm just saying there are different ways of handling it. The only one I can really admire is the one that really integrated everything together and had those people from the time they began their lessons dancing for the whole night. And the members of that club support them 100%, and if they make a mistake, they slap them on the back and say, hey, I did the same thing, and they're off and running. So make your own conclusions.
Yeah, so that's very good, Greg. I'm going to turn the mic over to Ken Jordan here for just a second. But before I do, while we're thinking about it, I want to tell you, and I'm not sucking up to my wife or anything, but one of the biggest assets I have developing and maintaining my home program is we work it together as a team. Now, not everybody has that opportunity. Everybody on our panel has that opportunity, and they do, based on their bios and everything that I know about them, they do work the same thing. I would like to hear from a couple of the partners that are here. What are some of the things that some of your success stories? Okay, so think about that, couple of you partners, while Ken Jordan says what he's got to say.
Yeah, my name is Ken Jordan. I'm from Hawaii. I'll speak on behalf of my... No, not at all. Aloha, yes. Speak a little bit on behalf of my wife, who does a lot of the work for me as well. She comes in, she sets up for our classes that we run that are not sponsored by clubs. She's the one that works the hall for me so that I can spend more time working the moves. And those things are big assets to me and make us successful. We run 2 classes, workshop, and 2 different clubs throughout the week. And yes, we have an advanced class followed by a beginner class, and we have found that really helps us because we have the dancers left that stay. And our advanced club actually puts out a roster. Jack talked about getting your dancers involved, and Dana really expanded on it when he said, ask them personally. 2 situations. I kept pleading with my advanced group for them to angel the advanced class and stay and angel my beginner class. And that was working to an extent. There were a couple of nights where we had to cancel class for our beginners because we had 7 beginners and none of the advanced folks stuck around. So what our club president did is put a roster out on the table, and after the first tip, told everybody that the roster was there. No one went up and signed it. He picked that roster up and he walked over and he said, pick a date. We want you to come help. This is the only way that we're going to build our advanced club, is if we get these beginners into mainstream and into plus. Possibly they'll want to come dance with us. And we don't push anybody to come dance with us. In fact, I've never actually asked anyone to come dance the advanced level. I put the flyers out, say I'm going to start a class, and if you show up, that's great. And I don't believe in pushing people up the ladder. But he did that. He walked over and he said, pick a night and commit to staying 1 night a month. And that's all we asked, was 1 night a month for them to stay. The second thing, our federation has been very stagnant for the past 5 years. We've had the same president, and Dick is a wonderful. In fact, same guy that took this list around at my club. But Dick was tired. He tried to get out, and they couldn't get anybody to run for president. We finally had a new dancer come in, and Dick went to this guy and said, "Please help. This person is now the president of the federation. We have all brand new officers for all 4 positions and an entire committee under them with brand new committee chairman." Because David took this on and went out to people and said, I want you to be my publicity person. I want you to get the articles to the newspapers and to all the publications here on the island. And I want you to be the person that chairs the convention. Didn't go out and ask for a volunteer. Went to the person and said, I want you to be our chairman. And made the people feel like they were wanted and needed. And when somebody feels needed, they will come forward and help you.
Thank you, Ken. Any comments?
I think what Ken says is absolutely right. If you get people wanting to be a part of it, they'll come. A couple more things I want to point out. As you said, the wives are very important. The spouses are very important to our activity, especially in lessons. And I run the lessons in my groups, even though the clubs are officer-run. I run the lessons, and that's a mutual understanding we had when I became caller for those clubs. The one thing I want to point out that Donna does for us is she does a newsletter for the class. She puts out a little newsletter saying these are the code of ethics as far as dancing and the things you should wear when you're dancing. These are shops out there that you can go shop at. These are the shops that will give you a discount if you'll tell them that you're a student of ours. These are shops that will probably charge you more if you tell them you're our students. But she does that. She puts these things out, and students really enjoy it. It gives them a little something to understand what square dancing is about. We also, as I said, we encourage our officers to come out to our house. We invite them out. We also invite our students out. About long before they graduate, they come out for an indoctrination session. We sit around in groups of about 8 people in the group, and we tell them about square dancing in the area. We tell them about, again, go over the what's proper square dance attire, what the clubs are, what clubs are in the area, what night they dance, who's calling for them, that type of thing. So they're not at the lesson trying to learn all this stuff at lesson. They're sitting in our living room, munching on chips, and listening to what is the indoctrination process, things they should know about dancing. Not necessarily how to do a left Allemande or a dos-a-do, but things they need to know about just the etiquette of being a dancer. We go over that at our house. We also sponsor one of the clubs I do is do a benefit dance every year for the Special Olympics. And, of course, we know a lot of dancers that have danced before, have gotten out of square dancing, have these outfits they don't know what to do with, or have dancers have outgrown their outfits somewhere along the line or shrunk on them. And what we've done is we have a large bedroom upstairs in our house. We put those clothes, they volunteer, give them to us. We put them upstairs in our bedroom. When the students come out, we say, hey, if you want to go up and try some of those clothes on, welcome to it. And all we ask is that you find something you like, you leave a donation. We don't care what it is. If it's $1, $10, $20. We tell them what we do with the money. It goes to the Special Olympics. And we have good success with that, too.
Anybody?
Let me provide a word of caution. I don't even like to use this word, but since we're all peers and in the same profession, we do use our dancers. We use them to our benefit. We need to really be careful how we use the dancers. If you all of a sudden get a reputation that you're a user caller, you're in trouble. You have got to give back. And I have a policy within the clubs that I call for. If they support our club, I'll support what they want me to do for them. Usually 5 to 7 times a year. I'm doing church benefits. I'm doing demos at malls, nursing homes. If I'm free and it's a member of the club that supports me, I support them and I don't charge for that service. And the dancers need to know that. They come up for a PTA meeting, anything. I turn it into a lesson promotion seminar. Take those little 3x5 cards with me, and I pass them out. You just never know what's going to happen because of that. Another thing that's extremely important, dancers love for you to recognize that they're there. It's critical that you go around and what I call, I'm an old marketing guy, and I call it pressing flesh. Shaking that hand and hugging that lady. Everybody in that hall is just as important as anybody else. And it's important. And my wife knows that I'm not going to spend time sitting and talking with her and socializing with her. She knows that because I'm working that floor. Everybody in that hall is going to be touched by Paul Walker. Now, I forgot one night, and I'm driving home, and it dawned on me I did not yellow rock Judy Boast. This is 16 years ago, and I'll never forget it. I felt horrible. And here I am out in my backyard at midnight digging up a rock, just a little pebble. And I took it in the house, and I scrubbed that rock. And I dried it with a blow dryer. And I went out into the garage, and I took a can of yellow paint, and I spray painted that little rock yellow. And I took that blow dryer, and I don't use a blow dryer now, but... And I
was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I was a little kid, my dad used to pinch the top of my head, and all he'd get was hair. So, but anyway, and I took that yellow rock, and I put a note in a little box, and I mailed it to Judy, and I said, Judy, I forgot to give you a yellow rock at the dance last night. This is special for you, who is a special lady. Signed, Paul. Let me tell you, and I have a bag of yellow rocks that I carry in my case right now. And I tell you, relationships between you and that dancer will build mountains of benefits. Motivate your people through praise. Tell them what a great job they're doing. They'll do anything for you. Just be careful how we use our dancers.
I'm going to turn it over to Norm. He's got another question. But before I do, one thing I'd like you to notice is we have not spoke about size being successful. Okay? I've mentioned before, you know, we've got the 9 clubs that we work with. My basic club, we're happy to have 2, and sometimes we have 3 squares. My advanced club is 3 squares. One of my plus clubs is 15 squares. Another one is 4 squares. They're all successful because they all come back, and they're all having a good time, and we're making it a fun dance for them. It doesn't have to be 25 squares to be successful. It doesn't have to be 15 squares to be successful. But it has to be a situation where the dancers will want to come back next time and be a part of that group. That's what success is.
This one year, most of you northern people know that you lose a lot of people going down to Florida or Arizona in the wintertime. One thing that I did, I had some couples that did just that, and I found out where they were going and made copies of all the clubs in that area out of the register with the telephone numbers, and told them to get in contact with somebody. And I took that sheet that we get from CALLERLAB that has all the calls on it, and I marked marks in front of all the calls that they had had. When they went down to Florida, they called different ones and found a club that would accept them. They gave this to the caller. The caller then knew where they were, could brush them up a little bit on the ones that they had down there, but my students hadn't had, and they fell right in with the club. When they came back home, I told them, now mark off all the calls that you've had down there, and then we'll help you catch up when you came up. So I always get there 45 minutes or an hour beforehand so that I can kind of calm down before a lesson. And I would use this time to then brush up all these people. So they weren't taking class time. This was very successful. We had one couple, when they went down to Florida and came back, they came back because of a death in the family. And so they did lose out, I would say, 3 nights, 3 lessons. So we went to their house, and I asked for some volunteers, and I got ample volunteers to fill in the other 3 places. We went to their house. I took my equipment, and we spent a few nights bringing them up to date because they were pretty far behind. But it's little things like this. In fact, I might add that these people have held at least 2 or 3 office jobs in their club since then. So never throw away a couple. Even if it does take a couple of nights of your time, if you can possibly do it, let's save all these people.
Thank you, Norb. If anybody else has anything.
Before we close, just one thing here. I want all of you to repeat after me. Nothing is more important than the dancers.
Okay. I'd like to leave you with these final thoughts. I watch too much TV. But anyway, today we discussed several things that it's required to help maintain a successful home program. Leadership, stroking or massaging your group, your dancers, resources and training. We talked about caller versus dancer-run programs. We discussed communication. Actually, I wish we'd have discussed that a little bit more. I think we missed out on that point, but that'll be one of those things. We talked about being receptive to the group's needs. We talked about use variety in your approaches. Be personable with your dancers. Make sure you say hello. Meet them at the door. I was really impressed with that, guys. You did a good job on that. We talked about how important it is to feed our programs with lessons, and we talked about continue not only being a caller but be a dancer. That was a point brought up with a couple of our panelists, and I really like that. I'd like to leave you with this quote. This is my favorite management quote, and I'll tell you the first time I saw this was when I was in basic training in San Antonio, Texas. It was on a sign as we were marching by, and the quote was, "Lead, follow, or get out of the way." That's my favorite management quote. I use it forever, everywhere I am, and that's what we need to do. And I fully believe that all your programs are going to be successful because you're here trying to get better at being successful. And I appreciate all the input we've had today. I'd like to thank Dana and Donna. I'd like to thank Paul and thank Nita. Please do so. And I'd like to thank my wife, Sherry. And I'd like to thank you all for being here today.
Now that we're closing, let me just say this. Go buy a record on Elk label
or go
called
buy a Square
Happy
Dance
Trails. Happy Trails. And when you get ready to leave your dance, as everybody's saying goodbye, put it on and let it play and see what happens.